One can get real peace only when he is able to discriminate between what is real and what is unreal, when he is able to dispel the darkness of ignorance, when he is able to conquer death. Such a person surely enjoys supreme peace. Holy Mother Sharda Devi was a perfect Jnana Yogin who had that wonderful experience of peace throughout her life, from the beginning to the end, in spite of her intense activity in the home and also outside. But she was perfectly in peace. Her mind was in a state of tranquility, what we call equanimity. She was not to be disturbed by anything of this world. She would not be shaken by anything that might happen around her. Though she was surrounded by fire, she was not burnt by the fire. The fire had no power to burn even the hair of Holy Mother. All these things happened because Holy Mother was the personification of purity and purity, like Sita in Ramayana. She could come out victorious through the fire. The god of fire took Sita in his arms and presented to Sri Ramachandra. Look, she is purity itself. Holy Mother life is like that. In my last class, I have depicted Holy Mother as a perfect Raja Yogin. In this talk, I would like to depict how Holy Mother was perfect Jnana Yogin, a perfect Bhakti Yogin, and a perfect Karma Yogin. Where do you get such persons? That means Holy Mother has shown through her life how one could be a perfect yogin in one's life. So Holy Mother's life is open to all types of spiritual aspirants, whether you are following a Raja Yoga or Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga, whatever yoga you may be following or practicing, you can have Holy Mother as your perfect ideal. If you concentrate on her life and studies, you don't have to read any book, you don't have to look into anything for your clearing the doubts or for your inspiration. So it is really most fortunate thing for us to study her life in depth, not simply reading in a superficial way. The prayer which just now I chanted indicates the path of Gyana. That means you will have to have sharp intellect and strong determination and willpower to reject what is unreal, to accept what is real, to establish yourself on reality, on truthfulness, and to pursue your path in all zealousness. So the first qualification the Jnana Yoga prescribes is Viveka. It's a Sanskrit word. Again, we feel very difficult to translate these Sanskrit words into another language because it cannot give the full meaning of what the word exactly wants to convey. Yet, in order to have some understanding of what we are going to discuss about, Viveka means discrimination. To distinguish between what is real and what is unreal, what is essential, what is non-essential, what is good, what is bad. So this kind of finding out the truth in a thing is called Viveka. Once Holy Mother had an attack of dysentery. She was suffering physically. One day she saw the reflection of her body in the still water of the pond. She looked into that body. She found her body was emaciated, reduced to skin and bones. She was not depressed by looking into. Ordinarily we feel very bad if we see our physical condition is not quite good enough. But here, Holy Mother discriminated. Its impermanence and worthlessness. After all, body is subject to decay. It has to go one day or other. No body is permanent. Everything has to go sooner or later. So, by just rightly using the power of discrimination, she got over the attachment towards the body. She is no more bothered about it. Her peace was not disturbed because of her body weakness on account of dysentery. Later on, Holy Mother taught her disciples to have firm faith in God And she said, everything in this world is illusory. Husband, wife, even this body, all these are impermanent. These are all great shackles of Maya. Maya tries to bind you in so many ways. It is just happy if you are engrossed yourself, if you are involved yourself, if you are drowned yourself in these attractions and things of the world. She is just happy. Oh, my child is doing well in the world. But if you want to have the experience of peace, you must surely have to be freed from these shackles. Then only you will be able to cross the shore of the world. So, by discrimination, you should be able to give up attachment to the physical body. You have to free your identification with the body. That is called Vivek. The same Viveka must be applied to all the things of this world. The more you see the impermanence, the more strong you should be in your firmness to hold on to truth. The second prescription of Jnana Yoga is that Vairagya, renunciation. People are scared of this word renunciation. People want the idea to be taught to them not using the word renunciation. But even though you seem to be afraid of it, you don't have to be afraid of it. At least you should know what is renunciation. Then you will know the supreme value of practicing it. What is renunciation? Iha mutra phalabhoga viragaha. That is renunciation. That means you don't aspire to cling on to the enjoyments either in this world or any other world. You are not seeking enjoyments anymore. You are just simply taken over by these enjoyments and you lose yourself totally and you lose everything. Thereby you don't enjoy peace or joy in the real sense of the term. So one day or other you have to make a firm resolve not to go in for any kind of sense pleasures. Why? Because mind, which is very important, instrument to go towards God is completely lost in the enjoyments. Where is it time to turn the mind to God? So they say Vairagya is important. Holy Mother had the perfect knowledge of these worldly enjoyments. She was not hankering after them at all. First of all, she lived in the company of the great master, the master of renunciation. So she could understand the great value of renunciation. Being in that state, you can enjoy the whole creation. What to speak of this petty, sensual pleasures. One day, Sri Ramakrishna asked Holy Mother, what was her desire? Holy Mother frankly said, desire? I desire only to serve you. And I desire to cooperate in your mission. I don't want to drag you down to the life of this world. I will not be the object of enjoyment in the sense of the world. Sri Ramakrishna was supremely happy to know the perfect character of Holy Mother, how she was a perfect match for him. Master of Renunciation, Holy Mother, she was equally perfect in renunciation as Sri Ramakrishna was. That's why we find when the candidates would come to join the mission, to become monks, Holy Mother would give tremendous inspiration to them. She was a perennial source of inspiration to spiritual aspirants who want to practice renunciation. She would bless them fully, totally. And she would say, Sri Ramakrishna is always with you. You don't have to fear for anything. You don't have to desire for anything. The third qualification which is prescribed for Jnana Yogi is mumukshutva, intense desire for liberation. Longing for that. If you study Holy Mother's life, you find It is a saga of religion in practice. Once, one of her women companions, a householder, she became annoyed with a much younger brahmacharin Holy Mother came to know of this, and then she said, Holy Mother is telling about that householder disciple. Who is she? What is her status? She is, after all, a householder. Let her go away if she wants to. The brahmacharin is living here after renouncing everything. He has put total faith in me. The disciple, the brahmacharin, has renounced everything for the sake of God. He has renounced the world. These are my godly children. They will live in this world pure as flowers. Can anything be grander than this? Mother is telling that when she sees the suffering of the householders, she said her very bones were scorched. But a person who has strong desires to enjoy this world, how can such a person listen to me if I ask him to renounce the world? But if a fortunate soul has realized the world to be the sport of Maya and God alone to be real, it's my duty to help little bit such people. Is there any end to the suffering in this world? Unless a person has intense longing for liberation, how can you get it? Just as you desire for the things of the world, some desires you think about it very deeply and you work for it and you get them. In the same way, you must have this intense desire for liberation, then you will work for it and you will get it. And Holy Mother life is a life of continued spiritual practice from the beginning to the end. Amidst all her intense household activities, she never lost sight of the goal. She always would give supreme importance to the practice of spirituality. Then only all the activities which we carry on in this world have got any value. Without practicing spirituality, whatever activity you may do, it is useless. It's nothing. Fourth qualification, which is prescribed by Vedanta, Shat Sampatti, the six virtues: restraint of the mind and senses, withdrawal of the self, forbearance, concentration, faith in the precepts of the Guru and the scriptures. These constitute the virtues which are to be practiced by a Jnana Yogin. If you look into Holy Mother's life, how she fulfilled all these conditions, that is why she could have that experience of supreme peace, which is nothing but supreme joy. If you have not seen, better to see Dakshineshwar Kali temple in Calcutta. There, the master's room where Sri Ramakrishna practiced intense spiritual sadhana, it is there he met his inner circle of devotees. It is there he gave training to all the disciples. There's a place called Nahabat, just by the side of master's room. It is very small room, most uncomfortable. If you see that room, you will understand. It is impossible to live there. But Holy Mother lived in that small, congested room. She endured many hardships of various kinds. But her concentration was not shaken by all these external factors. As I said, she was very firm, determined, one-pointed in her spiritual practices. She was not bothered about external things. Even in that most difficult condition, she would every day go to Ganges, take bath, come, sit for meditation. Secondly, she had tremendous devotion, faith in what Sri Ramakrishna had told her, Sri Ramakrishna trained Holy Mother in every aspect of spirituality. Whatever Sri Ramakrishna has said, she literally followed. She had tremendous faith in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. Sri Ramakrishna was not merely her husband, he was her guru. He was her guru. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna initiated her, writing a mantra on her tongue. That was the spiritual initiation given by Sri Ramakrishna to Holy Mother. Thenceforward, the wife has become a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, perfect disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, setting a model, setting an ideal for all of us. So, to have tremendous faith in the precepts of Guru, she practiced this discipline too. To Holy Mother, all were her own. Her love has no distinction between it has no distinction on whom she is giving, whether a saint or a sinner, rich or poor. Her love was extended to everyone, whether it is a learned or ignorant. Even her love extended to birds and animals. So, her whole life itself was the personification of love. So this same-sightedness towards all beings is, according to Gita, one of the signs of perfect knowledge of Brahman. That is how Sri Ramakrishna made her his foremost disciples. Later on, she became spiritual teacher. She guided people in spiritual life. So she was a perfect Jnana Yogin. Now let us see how Mother was a perfect Bhakta Yogin too. In my last class I had told how she was a perfect Raja Yogin. Bhakti Yoga, essentially it consists in loving God. Everyone is capable of loving, but it is not possible to love God without the purification of heart. So Bhakti Yoga prescribes certain disciplines. First of all, the Vaidhi Bhakti, The preparatory bhakti later on develops into full matured bhakti. The Vaidhi bhakti deals with devotion to God associated with rites and ceremonies, worship of God, performing rituals, and so on. When we study Holy Mother life, we find how she was very devotional. She was pure at heart, so that made her very easy to have natural love towards God from the beginning of her life. She practiced various disciplines in some form or other throughout her life. Sri Ramanujacharya who advocated the qualified monism, he prescribes essential preparations for devotion. These are very important to follow if you want to have the desired result. Here also, the word Viveka is prescribed. But here the Viveka, the meaning of Viveka is different from that we studied in Jnana Yoga. Here Viveka refers to the discrimination regards to food and what you eat. Food plays very important part. The food we take, it must be free from threefold impurities as far as possible. The first one, the impurities that arise due to the nature of the food itself. One should avoid taking extremely rich, spicy or stimulating food. Secondly, those arising from the contact with persons of impure character. Thirdly, those due to contamination because of the environment, dust, dirt, etc. So in all these aspects one should be careful regarding food, what you take in for your nourishment. Holy Mother was born in an Orthodox Brahmin family, so naturally it was very easy for her to be careful about the food. One remarkable thing about Holy Mother was that she generally ate the food that was offered to God in the daily worship. Whatever she took, she offered it to God and then she took it. She was careful about accepting things from doubtful or impure sources. Yet she was not over fastidious. According to Shankaracharya, Viveka discrimination implies observing purity in regard to intake through all the senses, not only food. Holy Mother lived under the watchful guidance of Sri Ramakrishna. She was able to adjust herself in the new suburban environment in regard to her standards of purity, cleanliness in cooking, and so on. Most important, her mind was always on a very sublime level. The next discipline in preparatory bhakti is Remoka, that is cultivation of freedom from desires. You must cultivate this quality to be free from desires. Regarding this condition, we have seen Holy Mother had no desires in the world. She was fully satisfied and all her desires were just merged in the desire to serve Sri Ramakrishna, who was her own Guru, and she just did that. She didn't allow any desire to come into her mind. So thus she fulfilled this discipline. The next discipline is Abhyas, that is constant and uninterrupted remembrance of God. With this discipline also she was very good in following it. She used to perform japam continuously. Once she said to her niece named Nalini, Holy Mother said, "What a lot of work I did when I was of your age. And yet, in spite of all that work, I repeated my mantra 100,000 times." These are the words of Holy Mother. She was also fond of music, and with Sister Lakshmi she often used to sing devotional songs. These are all very important spiritual practices in our life. To practice bhakti, singing God's glory, offering prayers, very important. Then, the Hindu scriptures speak of the 5 kinds of yajnas to be performed by a person in order to be free from debts. When we are born in this world, we have to fulfill certain obligations. One is Brahma Yajna. This is done by study of scriptures. By that way, we are paying back our debts to God. When we study Holy Mother life, we find how she would read for herself from the Ramayana, and she often used to listen to oral readings in group. Always she would entertain spiritual ideas. So she was always being acquainted with the spiritual ideas of the scriptures. Next is Deva Yajna, worship of gods and goddesses who preside over the forces of nature and bestow rain, light and other blessings on mankind. Is the third one. Worship for the welfare of the forefathers to whom we owe the blessings of the human birth. That is, offering oblations to the departed ancestors. That should be done. And she offered oblations at Gaya. Next is Driyajna, that is observance of one's debt to society. So Holy Mother performed this kind of yajna by feeding and serving large number of devotees and guests who visited her. The last yajna is Bhuta Yajna. It is paying of debt to creatures which provide human life with food, transport and other conveniences and blessings. In how many ways the animals help man. Holy Mother used to say that each one, be it a god or a tiny worm, must get its rightful due. Holy Mother was always the embodiment of kindness towards the animals. The next is Kalyan, that is truth, simplicity, charity, compassion and non-violence. They collectively constitute Kalyan. We have already discussed about Mother's practice of truthfulness and non-violence in Raja Yoga and Gyana Yoga. She was extremely simple and guileless. Anybody could get anything from her by just addressing her as Mother. Further, her compassion ever flowed to others, even to the sinners and the wicked. Her important gift to the people was in the form of initiation, that is the spiritual gift. She would give the divine name to large number of people who would come to her. Thereby she would free those people from all sins and she would lead them towards the path of spirituality. Another great virtue of preparatory bhakti is cheerfulness. We find Holy Mother always was cheerful, as merry as a girl. She was never morose, she was never depressed, she never complained of anything, even though she lived in that tiny room at Nahabat over many months and years. But she served Sri Ramakrishna with all cheerfulness. Then Anudharsha, that is, Holy Mother was too modest to give external expression to her inner joy in public. Narada Bhakti Sutra mentions few more virtues for a devotee. A devotee must shun evil company. Regarding this, Sri Ramakrishna was very careful in cautioning his disciples, and she cautioned Sharda Devi too. A certain old lady who had not led a pure life in her younger days, she used to come to see Holy Mother. Sri Ramakrishna came to know of it and then said to Holy Mother not to allow her in her room. Referring to this incident, Holy Mother said how Sri Ramakrishna was concerned in protecting the youngsters. So, Holy Mother also would give sufficient warnings to her young disciples. Narada Bhakti Sutra also mentions about practicing devotion in solitude. Holy Mother fulfilled this need of solitude. If you study her life in Nahabat, it is more than solitude. Service to the holy is another prescription of the Bhakti Sutra. She fulfilled this to a wonderful degree by serving so many disciples and devotees who would come to Sri Ramakrishna. Humility and absence of conceit are essential for a devotee. All these qualifications are required if you are to be called a devotee. Holy Mother was greatly honored as the wife of the Paramahamsa. She was addressed as Goddess, Divine Mother. Yet there was not a trace of conceit in her. She did not become egoistic because she got this honor. She always considered herself a village woman like any other. She was so humble. Narada Bhakti Sutra mentions that one should sing the glories of God and listen to the chanting of His name. Holy Mother witnessed the divine Leela at Dakshineshwar when Sri Ramakrishna sang and danced with devotees in ecstasy in his room. He would ask his disciple to keep open the door that faces Nahabat. He said, in this room where Sri Ramakrishna was doing kirtan and dancing, he said, in this room intense feeling and love of God will be expressed. She must see it. Otherwise, how will she learn? Referring to this, Holy Mother said later on, what a unique master he was. How many minds he illumined. What unceasing bliss he radiated. Day and night, his room echoed and re-echoed with laughter, stories, talk and music. There was talk of God and His glories all the time in his room. The Master sang many times, and Holy Mother would listen to it ever after ever, standing behind the screen of the Nahabad. When all the singing was over, Holy Mother would salute him with folded hands. So thus she had wonderful, joyous days. People would pour in day and night, and there was no end of spiritual talk. She never saw any time Sri Ramakrishna was sad. She never saw like that. He made merry with all, a boy of 5 or an old man. Everybody would be happy when they come to Sri Ramakrishna. Another prescription of Narad Bhakti Sutra is that a devotee must not waste even a single moment in vain. Holy Mother, if you see her life, she was never idle. She was always working and serving people, attending all household chorus. She would make garlands for the goddesses or talk to the devotees on spiritual matters. Holy Mother was the recipient of the grace of a God incarnate, Sri Ramakrishna. Next stage in the devotion, bhakti, is parabhakti, that is perfection in bhakti. This could be seen in Holy Mother. She was shedding tears of joy, and she would be in samadhi in the company of Divine Master. Swami Vivekananda mentions 3 angles of a triangle of love. One is love knows no fear. Secondly, love knows no bargaining. Thirdly, love knows no rival. Holy Mother was the bestower of fearlessness on her countless children. Reaching parabhakti state, one gets visions, ecstasies and samadhi. Holy Mother got all this. She had number of visions of gods and goddesses. In Vrindavan, in the height of bhava or inner realization, she experienced her union with Sri Ramakrishna. This is the highest attainment in Bhakti Yoga. Now coming to the other yoga, karma yoga, working ceaselessly without any attachment to action and the fruits that accrue. How Holy Mother was perfect karma yogin. Karma is the means by which the mind is purified and makes one fit for God realization, Karma is also one of the 4 yogas that lead one to self-knowledge and liberation. So, Holy Mother perfectly followed the doctrine of karma, how she should engage work in a selfless way that paves the way for liberation. Thus we see how she was adept in all the yogas. She was perfect Raja Yogin, Gyana Yogin, Bhakti Yogin and Karma Yogin. So what we find Holy Mother was an embodiment of perfection in all the 4 yogas. In her life we see a confluence of all these in equal measure. Like Sri Ramakrishna, all aspects of her personality, intellect, heart and skill in work, were equally and harmoniously developed to perfection. But all these things she could do in the setting of a simple domestic life. Living in the home, she became perfect yogin. That's a very important point which we should understand. So her whole life is a glorious example of how dedicated service to others and particularly love of God through service to human beings lead one to the ultimate spiritual good. The first important message conveyed by Holy Mother's life is that one can achieve the highest spiritual unfoldment even while living an intensely active life in the world. In each yoga, there are some preliminary observances which are external and secondary to the essential inner core of practice. It will be observed that Holy Mother taught the essential parts and asked others not to be so fastidious about less important points. Like Master, she used to say that in this modern age, the path of Bhakti, love of God, is the best. Work, meditation, intellectual discrimination and reasoning, all these should be practiced so as to nurture love of God. Thus, we see how Holy Mother has shown through her life that one could enjoy supreme peace and joy by knowing the techniques of these yogas and practicing them in the life. With these words, I conclude my talk. Thank you.